Welcome to this episode of the Big Apple's CoRe podcast. I'm Courtney Grill, Business Development Director at Skanska USA Building, and I'm joined here by Eric Brill and Liam O'Sullivan. And can you introduce yourselves and tell us about where you work and what you do?
Sure, you want to start?
Sure. My name is Liam O'Sullivan. I work at Accord Contracting. I'm a VP.
So I work with Gensler. I've been with Gensler about 23 years now. I'm a studio director overseeing a group of about over 20 people. And I'm also a Northeast client relationship leader. So I connect with our Toronto, Boston, Morristown, and New York offices on client relationships.
That's great. And what enticed you to get involved in the CoreNet mentorship program? We're celebrating the 10-year anniversary this year of this amazing program, and would love to hear more about what kind of motivated you to get involved.
Sure. So personally, it ties into my background, but personally, I came from backgrounds of companies that were very large, and they had really great infrastructures and internal mentor programs, be it either formal or informal. I left that type of world and I stepped into a small family business where I'm running the business now, and there's no one for me to really look up to for that mentor-mentee relationship. So I needed to seek something in the industry that was sort of outside of my company, and CoreNet seemed to be a really good fit.
I remember being in high school, and I had a guidance counselor who recommended me to an art teacher because I wasn't sure if I was going to engineering or architecture school. And this art teacher gave me his extra time outside of school to learn about house, to draw a house, elevate a house, and I realized, you know what, this is really for me. And even though I was doing modeling at a young age, and it kind of clicked, and that was a trajectory to move me forward into architecture in the program. And I kind of wanted to pay that forward, in the CoreNet program. So, I love mentoring and teaching. I've been training and teaching design managers at Gensler for many years, and now client relationships. So I thought I can add some value and share some expertise, and meeting Liam has been great.
So Liam, you mentioned kind of working for large companies and going to a smaller firm, and Eric, you talked about what kind of first started your interest in this industry. Can you explain a little bit about your career paths so far?
Sure. Going back, I used to work part-time jobs between I was like 12 and 20 years old in the service industry. I was caddy, I was doing a paper route, I was doing bartending, short order cook, and that service work ethic really kind of drove that home to me, and I really are proud of service delivery and responding to our clients. So I became an architect after school, became a job captain, a project manager, sort of account director, and then became the studio director and kind of developing this business. So that was really important, that work ethic, and then just design delivery was important for me.
Yeah, and I guess my background is similar in the sense that I've always been service-based. I've worn a few hats in my short career right now, but my undergrad, I was an engineer. I worked as an engineer out of undergrad. Then I took a turn that most engineers don't take, and I went to law school, and I was a corporate lawyer for a few years. And then I went from corporate law into construction, family office, essentially. But, every step of the way, really, you're either selling a product or a service. My entire life, I've always sold service. It's always been essentially sales and client-facing problem solving. And I just sort of took those skills and took those things that I enjoyed about all of my past lives and sort of brought them into my current life. And
that's great. That's interesting. Absolutely. Can you tell us a little bit about what you got out of the program, maybe professionally or personally?
Sure. I'm more than happy to talk about it because Eric's been really great. It's very difficult when you're stepping into taking control of a company and you have no experience running or taking control of a company. You don't take on that job, you take on all of the other jobs that are at the company. So you immediately become a project manager, you immediately become an administrator, you immediately become sales, and you immediately become customer service. On top of all of the other things that have to do with hiring, firing, HR, dealing with COVID, which no one knew. I stepped into it late 2019, early 2020, COVID happened. And we were in an industry, as everyone knows, we were told you literally cannot work or you'll be fined. That was a very difficult thing to navigate. It was very great meeting Eric because Eric's got really, really interesting experience running a business within a business. And he can talk more about that. But he's got really great insight. And he's got a really cool infrastructure at Gensler that he can leverage to manipulate and sort of mold his studio within a business. And that's some stuff that I've really tried to start working at my own company. It's difficult, but it gives great ideas.
Yeah, you said that really well.
You did.
So, yeah, I mean, I wanted to, share these experiences Liam was saying, and it was really important to, go through COVID. We have a similarities to kind of developing our businesses at the same time, because I was a studio director only the past 2 years, and right, the recession happened, and I became this, this leader of doing that, and getting people to think about how do we get back to work eventually, and how do we service our clients. And I think Liam touched upon is like having that network. The internal network has to be strong. They support you, they help you, and then your external network, you just got to keep developing and leveraging the internal network to help you with the external network. So I think passing some of that knowledge on, and we talked a lot about personal brand, like what's our personal brand, and how do you leverage that to connect with people, and also just having a core team, like developing a core team and making sure that they're improving, and you're with them all together. At Gensler we say we, not I. It's all about the team and how we're gonna design and service our clients all together. So I think that was important, sharing that. So you take responsibility of the teams that we develop. So I thought that was important to share.
100%.
And emotional intelligence, I think, right? Emotional intelligence is really key about just connecting with people and knowing what you're really good at, where you need help on. I think just that, where can I use expert advice from someone who's been here 30 years?
Right.
I forgot to say that, 30 years in this career.
30 years. Yeah. It's been very helpful listening to Eric and learning from Eric, because he does focus on the soft skills that listen, I'm one of those people that's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to pick up a book and read about it. It's very difficult to pick up soft skills from a book. You need to talk to someone, and they need to explain to you why certain soft skills are important in order for you to really understand it. Because unless you work on your emotional intelligence and learning how to connect with people that you may not have all that much in common with at first glance, it's going to be very difficult to build that relationship and build that trust. We're all in the service industry. We're all trusted advisors, right? Unless you can build that bridge where someone's like, she knows what she's talking about. He knows what he's talking about. It's going to be really difficult to make that next step and say, like, I'd like to work with you at some point. And, like, that's ultimately the goal for all of us, is to generate new relationships and have a nice, healthy working relationship that becomes maybe personal relationships with our clients. And that's the next step.
Absolutely. It does. Do you have any advice for people who might be interested in the program?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if someone who wants to learn expertise, knowledge from someone who's been in industry for a certain amount of years, or who wants to, team up with someone who's in the profession but different role, right? I think he can benefit that person. I think just Liam and I really connected really easily. I think just lean in, and I think also to, that person can also just do a self-assessment, on about themselves, and what's the desired outcome from these mentorships. I think would be important.
100% agree. Short answer is do it.
Yeah, just do it. Yeah.
Long answer is figure out why you want to do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then focus your efforts in those specific areas.
What was your favorite part about the program?
I mean, favorite or so the most fun part was grabbing drinks with Eric and just chatting and learning.
That's a great part.
Favorite part was probably helping focus on things that I either didn't think was important subconsciously or didn't recognize was important, and then being able to target them. I think that was my favorite part.
Yeah. I mean, I think the program, that's co-led by Pat, Beth and JJ, really great. I think when we first get the first kickoff and meeting, even all the pairs, is actually very inspiring, because you get to hear a lot about people you haven't met before. And I think that's incredible. And I think the three of them are doing a great job as co-leading the mentorship program. So kudos to them. And I think to reiterate what Liam said, just getting together socially, during COVID, being outside at that time was really important. I think now that we share pictures of our family and our kids, and
Yeah.
so it's like he has a daughter now because after we first met, so we're kind of developing that further relationship. So it's really exciting.
That is exciting.
I have 2 daughters, and I can give advice on having daughters, but
I need
I'm
it.
not.
That's great. I know when I was in the program about 6 years ago, and I loved also meeting the other mentor-mentee pairs. And they have a monthly happy hour for all of the mentor-mentee pairs in the past programs, which is
Monday.
great. Yes,
It's coming up.
coming
Yeah,
up on
yeah.
on Monday.
Another great.
And it's great to kind of get a smaller networking group together just with all of the other people going through the program as well. That's great. So do you have any advice that you would give somebody, both career advice, personal advice, just for anybody entering this industry?
Well, I mean, regards to this program, I think anyone should apply to it who wants to learn. I think my DNA is, parents were teachers. My wife's a teacher. I think it's part of my DNA to teach and mentor. And I think that just comes within. And maybe this is more natural for me. I think some people may just not have that natural tendency, but I think they can learn, to do that through other professionals, I think. And reading something to learn is actually not bad at all. I do that same thing too, and I need to learn something new. So it's good. I think we all need to learn, find how we learn. But I think learning by being with other like-minded professionals is really one of the most important parts of the program.
Advice. I would say my experience is a little unique in the sense that I came from a very different background, but I think advice for people who are either entering this industry is most of us, if not all of us, have worked before in some capacity, be it in school, serving people, whatever it is. Whatever you've done before, there are traits that you developed and skills that you learned that 100% apply to whatever job you have here. So don't dismiss whatever you've done and leave it behind you, because that's what makes you whole as you are there. And you should always be growing and doing something different. And that's where these programs are really cool, because you meet people who have those different experiences and you figure out, I don't know what I'm doing. Let me call Eric. He did something very similar last year. Or Eric's Liam, my family member's doing this thing. It's not related to construction at all, but they're dealing with a lawyer and they said this thing, is this even legit? And it's let me look at it. There's other things that you learn from people that just they have totally different backgrounds, and it just makes people way more interesting. And I think don't lose who you were just because you entered a new job.
Right, absolutely.
I think one thing is also want to add to that is getting to learn how we all tick, right? What are our passions, and use those as drivers, right, to develop your career and meeting other people. I think is a big part of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would agree. So we end each segment with a New York Minute. Right now we are sitting in Steelcase's showroom overlooking Columbus Circle in Central Park on a beautiful sunny day. So I feel like we're in an iconic New York setting at the moment for this. What is your favorite lunch spot?
Well, I live in Stamford, and I love being at Prime on the harbor. It's amazing views to the marina and to the new Long Island Sound. So, and great quality food. So,
Favorite is probably Ichiran, which is a ramen spot right next to my office, but I can never get in. So most common is probably Speedy's Deli on 31st and Broadway.
a pret-a-manger for a quick 5-minute sandwich. Yeah.
Absolutely. What is one interesting fact about yourself?
I was married in Ireland 5 years ago.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
So going on the wedding riff, I played saxophone at my wedding over 20 years ago with the band to serenade my wife and surprise all of our guests.
That's awesome.
That's pretty awesome. That is amazing. What is one unique thing about your New York experience?
Oh, I think from childhood. I mean, I grew up in New Rochelle, just right outside the city, and we used to come in to see Broadway with my family, and I love theater, and it's. I've been working in the industry 30 years, and probably in the city for almost all those 30 years, and the energy still drives me.
Unique experience in New York. I don't know if it's unique. I'm from New York as well. Originally, I guess, born in Queens, grew up in like maybe 15 miles outside of the city. And my wife, born in Brooklyn, grew up in the same place as I did. I've been around the city my whole life. My family has been around here my whole life, aside from a brief stint when I was younger. I just think like New York is a really big constant in my life, and while it's changing, like there's still no place like it. I've lived in Boston and Michigan and Texas, and, Geneva, and New York is still New York. It's very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And then one quick last question. If you could go back and tell your 18-year-old self one thing, what would you say?
Well, I would say thank that art teacher who really helped me guide my passions, and I figured out later that architecture was a profession for me. And just keep smiling, and the hard work was worth it. Yeah.
I would say do whatever you want. There's plenty of time to live as many lives as you want to live.
That's great. Well, thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
And we hope to see you at a CoreNet event soon.
Absolutely.
See you there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm joined by Natalia Zawisny and John Picco from, and can you both tell us a little bit about where you're from and about yourselves?
Absolutely. I can start us off. I'm Natalia Zawisny. I am currently a senior project manager at Pace University on their campus planning team. And I'll pass it to you, John.
John Picco. I'm Executive Director of Global Brokerage with Cushman and Wakefield. And I do office leasing and tenant representation and corporate service work based out of New York.
Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
We are celebrating the 10-year anniversary of the CoreNet Mentorship program. And I think John has been a mentor for the last 10 years, which is...
I think I was one of the first.
Yeah, which is amazing. So thank you both for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about kind of your career trajectories and where you've gotten to where you are in your careers now?
Sure. Well, I came from a construction family. My dad was a builder and also invested in real estate, and that's where I kind of got a taste for the business. So I came to New York City, grew up in Westchester, and came to New York City in the late 70s. Newly married and still in school, and I was interested in real estate, so I took a job in brokerage and spent about 12 years with Kenneth Laub and Company, and then left to join Ed Gordon to start the Westchester and Fairfield offices, and then back to New York in the mid-90s, and with JLW at the time, before the merger with LaSalle, and then Cushman and Wakefield for the last 24 years.
That's great.
Yeah, and different trajectory for sure. But so my background is in civil and structural engineering. And so after school, I practiced as a structural engineer for about 6.5 years. And at that point, I loved the design work, loved the engineering, but decided that I really wanted to get involved in the broader decisions around buildings and like, what are we building? Why are we building it? And I wanted to join the owner side of the construction industry. So about a year and a half ago, I joined Twitter, and I was on their team that planned out all of their office spaces. And so I was a construction project manager there for about a year. That sadly came to an end with Twitter's kind of change in management currently. And so I actually joined this CoreNet mentoring program when I was in the midst of finding what's next for me. So it was, we can get into that more, but it was a great time to connect with John and help figure out what I wanted to do next. And decided to stay on the owner side, but now with Pace and doing that for higher education. So it's, I'm still, figuring out my way in the world, but that's where I am right now.
That's great. And I think that leads me to my next question. You mentioned you joined when you were in kind of a career transition. What were you both hoping to get out of the program as a mentee and a mentor?
Well, as a mentor, I like to try to help young people navigate their way through the business world. And I had the benefit of some great mentors in my time. They made a world of difference. So to me, it was to try to help young people. And I also like to learn more about how the young generation is working in business. So for me, it's both enjoyment of trying to be helpful and also as somewhat of a learning experience too.
Yeah, and I think for me, when I first applied for the program, I was at Twitter at the time. So my goal was to, I think, learn more about the corporate real estate world, all about different commercial spaces. And then, as we started the program, my transition phase started, and it was the perfect time to learn from John's career and all of the people that he knows in the industry, and just really bounce off lots of ideas of kind of what I had always thought about and wanted to learn more about. And John has so much experience in the industry and in being a mentor that, he could really help me. He could really understand like what I was looking for and what I felt like my strengths were, and kind of be that sounding board to help direct me into finding like the next perfect role.
Absolutely. So what do you think made you both a great mentor-mentee pair?
Well, we both share some background and knowledge about construction, and
That's helpful and interesting.
It is, and plus we were sharing stories about kitchen renovation too,
Yeah.
which is also good. But it's I think we really just hit it off right away, and very comfortable, and Natalia's really just a pleasure to be with. So it's worked out very well.
Yeah, no, thank you, John. Yeah, we were both renovating our kitchens at the time, so there were some really fun photos that we could exchange on that, which was great.
That's a big project.
Yeah, it was. John's kitchen is a lot bigger than my Manhattan apartment kitchen, but yeah, I think John just has so much knowledge about different parts of the real estate industry. And so I felt like I could, learn so much from his experience, and he was so easy to talk to and just bounce any ideas off of. So I think it was just a really, really great time to come together and talk about work, talk about life, kitchens, just everything.
And at the time, Natalia was with Twitter.
Right.
So that was an interesting story
Absolutely.
in the background. And I made two predictions which were not true. One was that she would stay on with the company, and the other was that Elon Musk would never buy it. But
Right.
or they,
And I was like,
they
oh.
couldn't force him to buy it.
Absolutely.
But ultimately, that didn't work out. So
That was an interesting time.
yeah.
It was, yeah. We had our first meeting, I think, right before when negotiations were still happening, and John made these predictions, and I was like, I don't know, John, like it's, it can go either way. We'll see what happens. And yeah, you can never predict things like that. So
Not at all.
yeah, it was an interesting ride. That's for sure.
And it sounds like this program helped you personally through kitchen renovations. But I think overall, how's this program helped you both personally and professionally?
Well, I think professionally, it's a way to stay connected. And I think it's so important to have personal connection. I mean, in any industry, but especially in real estate because it's very local. And it's a way to keep current with current practices, get different mindsets, different opinions. And I thoroughly enjoy, trading ideas and just trying to impart maybe some of my experiences helpful, and if I can do that, I feel like I've accomplished something.
Yeah, I think professionally, I definitely picked John's brain a lot about learning about zoning laws in New York City and about a lot of history in downtown Manhattan all over. So that's something that I was able to learn a lot about from John's experience on the brokerage side. So that was super helpful professionally. And personally, I think It was great just to learn about each other's families and learn from his experience in life. We talked about health a lot, which was really great. So yeah, I think just sharing stories and experiences was really wonderful personally.
That's great. What was your favorite part about the program?
Well, it's a nice reason to go out and have a nice lunch.
That's true.
Yes, very true.
And just the really just the interaction and learning more about what is happening. Initially about what was happening at Twitter, and then Pace University now. I mean, I'm an alumnus of Pace, so that's always interesting. And with I often speak with the Pace alumni, part of the Pace Power Network. So that's interesting. And looking back on what it was like to be in Manhattan at that time, compared to what's happening now. And so, trading those kinds of stories, and, that to me has, been one of the most interesting parts of it.
Yeah. No, I think definitely just the connections that we made and the time that we spent together was great. And I think also the program has like monthly meetings where they get everyone together, and there were a lot of virtual Zoom meetings, which were great, and some in-person happy hours. So it also just created such a great network, especially when I was in my phase trying to, just figure out what was next. People were so kind and always reached out to me, and I probably met like a dozen people just through this mentoring program that then connected me to more people. And the idea to apply to higher ed actually came from one of those calls. So it helped, spark my next path and actually seek out institutions like that. So it definitely helped me find that next role.
That's really great.
Yeah.
And that is a benefit to the program is the connection with the other mentors and mentee pairs and the small and intimate networking settings that it provides throughout the program. I know I got a lot out of that personally when I was involved in the program. What's some advice I should say, that you would recommend to somebody who's interested in the program or who has just started the program? How do you think that they could get the most out of it?
Well, I'd say definitely go for it. I think mentor-mentee relationships are really fundamental to help, especially the early stage of a career. And I would say try to listen, be a good listener, try to be empathetic, and don't impart too much of your own experience on the mentee, because they have their own experience. And you try to be helpful, but not to be imposing.
Yeah. I would say just say yes to any opportunity to connect with more people and to just broaden your horizons and learn from different perspectives, because you never know what'll come from it. I think any other advice would just be to think about what you want to get from the program and kind of make that very clear up front, and talk with each other what your goals are for the program, just so that everyone's on the same page, and it'll be really really beneficial to everyone. Yeah. Steelcase
So we end each segment with a New York Minute, which is so proper today, sitting in the Steelcase showroom overlooking Central Park and Columbus Circle on a beautiful day. So I will first ask you, what is your favorite way to get around the city?
I love to walk.
Me too. And sometimes I take the subway just because it's the most efficient thing to do. Mm-hmm. And then I get to think about all the bad financial decisions I made, which caused me not to have a private car and drive it. But that's when you walk, you immerse yourself in in the city. The sights and the smells and the activity, and you just get a better sense of the place.
I agree. Do you have a favorite lunch spot?
The new Avra at Rock Center. It's fantastic.
Beautiful.
And indoor and outdoor dining, and it's great Greek food.
Mm-hmm.
Highly recommend it.
It's like Keste Pizza. Yeah, very good Neapolitan pizza downtown.
That sounds amazing. I'll have to check it out. What is one interesting fact about yourself?
Favorite pastime is riding motorcycles.
was going to go with a first-generation Polish American.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember going to the CoreNet Summit several years ago, and it was in Boston. And I believe, John, you mentioned that you had rode your motorcycle
I did,
there.
yes, because I live in Connecticut. It was about 3 hours, so
That's pretty awesome.
I didn't have to fly there.
That's very awesome.
That's great.
What is one thing that sparked your interest in industry news recently? I know we talked about Elon Musk with Twitter, but
I'm going to go with ChatGPT and what that will do to our industry. Yeah.
it's
Some
fascinating.
interesting articles lately.
That is a fascinating topic. My kids tell me I'm not ready for it. But I've
No
been
one's
thinking
ready
about
for it.
ways. I've been thinking about ways. No, they said, don't, I had the articles and they said, well, Dad, you're not ready for this. So, but I've been thinking about
Maybe you
ways
should
to
prove them
apply it.
wrong.
Well, I want to apply it to the brokerage business, but, it's fraught with a lot of, difficulty in securing information and so on. So, but we'll get there.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get there. But what's most alarming to me now is the record vacancies that are occurring in a lot of central office markets, and what the outcome of that will be. I think we'll all get back to the office eventually, but in the meantime, you're starting to see some cracks in ownership turning keys back to lenders. We've barely scratched the surface of that potential.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it's going to happen, but we've seen these cycles before, and inevitably when markets go down, you'll very often, especially with the big rise in interest rates, a lot of buildings will be undercapitalized and will become available on the market
Mm-hmm.
at distressed prices.
Absolutely. That is interesting. Be interesting to see what happens. What is one thing you could go back and tell your 18-year-old self? If you could.
For me, two things. Number one, don't screw up your relationship with Patty McCallion, who I met when I was 19, and we ultimately got married. We married 46 years this year. But
That's amazing.
I
Congratulations.
I nearly messed the whole thing up. And the other thing I would tell myself is buy real estate in New York and hold on to it.
At 18.
That's what I would have told you.
Yeah, that's great advice.
What year was that?
When I was 18, it would have been 73.
That would have been a good time to buy real estate.
It would have been a great time to buy it. And you could have bought, people don't believe me when I tell them this, but you could have bought a co-op facing Central Park for $1. You could have
That's
just
amazing.
pay the back due taxes,
Yeah.
and that was available.
That's absurd.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, a point of interest,
It's amazing.
when
Yeah.
my wife and I were newly married, and I was just graduating, we wanted to buy a house, and I wanted to buy a multifamily house so that I could live in part and have the rentals basically subsidize the cost. So we looked here at 53rd Street between 8th and 9th, right in our neighborhood. We ultimately turned it down because it was too dangerous a neighborhood, and there were burnouts on the street.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Burned out buildings, right here.
Yeah, that's right on this block.
Yeah.
So all I can say is, the world turns every day. We've seen these cycles before, and it may seem, awful at one point, but we've been through these cycles before.
Absolutely. Natalia, how about you?
Yeah, I would say just keep following what I find interesting and connect with people that are doing what I find interesting. Yeah, I'd say that's the advice.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
I know I would tell myself to seek out mentorship earlier. I wish I had done that earlier than I did, but
Yeah, it helps
it's
broaden
been
your
very
horizons a
helpful.
lot.
Yes. Well, thank you both for joining us.
Thank you for having
and
us.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Hope to see you at a CoreNet event soon.
Absolutely. Thank you.